55%. That number is buried inside JP Morgan's annual retirement spending research, and it has been sitting there, largely ignored by the financial planning industry, for years. 55% is not a withdrawal rate. It is not a fee. It is the actual share of pre-retirement income that the average American household spends once they stop working. Not 80%, not 100%, 55%. And if you have been building your retirement plan around any figure higher than that, you have been solving the wrong problem for a very long time. Here is what the distance between those two numbers actually costs you in real dollars. The standard retirement planning consensus, the one baked into employer benefit portals, bank websites, and most financial content you have ever consumed, says to target replacing 80% of your pre-retirement income in retirement. For a household earning $80,000 a year, that means $64,000 annually. At the 4% withdrawal rate, which comes from William Bengen's original 1994 research published in the Journal of Financial Planning, generating $64,000 per year from your portfolio alone requires a balance of $1,600,000, $1.6 million. That is the mountain most retirement calculators hand you as your target. Now use the number that the spending data actually supports. 55% of $80,000 is $44,000 per year. That is what retirees actually spend on average after commuting costs disappear, the work wardrobe is done, the mortgage is paid or nearly there, and the kids have stopped asking for anything. $44,000. Now subtract the piece of the equation that almost every retirement calculator either minimizes or skips entirely. The average Social Security retirement benefit in 2025, according to the Social Security Administration's own monthly statistical snapshot, is approximately $1,907 per month. That is $22,884 per year, arriving in your account regardless of what the market does. Subtract that from your actual spending need. $44,000 minus $22,884 leaves $21,116 per year that your portfolio needs to generate. At a 4% withdrawal rate, the portfolio required to produce $21,000 annually is $528,000. $528,000. Not $1.6 million. Not the $1.46 million that Northwestern Mutual's 2026 Planning and Progress study found is what Americans believe they need for a comfortable retirement. $528,000. Hold that gap in your head for a moment before we go anywhere else. 1.6 million versus 528,000. The difference is more than $1 million. That is not a rounding error in financial planning. That is the difference between feeling like retirement is an impossible climb and understanding that you might already be closer to the summit than anyone has told you. And the reason you were handed the wrong number is not random. I will get to that shortly, because understanding the machinery behind it changes how you see every retirement tool you will ever use again. Before the full explanation, I want to give you a mental picture that makes this stick in a way that numbers alone cannot. Think about a thermostat. A home thermostat does exactly one thing. It measures the gap between where the room temperature is and where you told it to go, then runs the system until that gap closes. The entire problem with retirement planning for most Americans is that someone else programmed the thermostat. Someone set the dial to 80 degrees. The heating system has been running hard for decades trying to hit it, but you actually live at 68. You always have. Your real retirement temperature, what your actual life costs once you stop working, is about 25 degrees lower than the number sitting in your current plan. And every year spent chasing the wrong temperature is a year the heating bill comes out of your present life. Your real relationships. The things you keep telling yourself you will do when you finally have time. Now here is the table that changes the math completely. I am holding everything constant. 8% annual return, conservative and below the S&P 500 century-long historical average of roughly 10%. Same household income of $80,000. Same 30-year retirement. The only variable I am changing is the spending assumption. Scenario 1. 80% income replacement. Social Security not credited. Portfolio must generate $64,000 per year. Portfolio needed. $1,600,000. Scenario 2. 80% replacement with Social Security subtracted. Portfolio must generate $41,116 per year. Portfolio needed $1,028,000. Scenario 3. 55% replacement with Social Security subtracted. Portfolio must generate $21,116 per year. Portfolio needed $528,000. The interest rate did not change. The retirement length did not change. The income did not change. The only variable was the spending assumption, and the target moved from $1,600,000 to $528,000. 3 scenarios, 3 completely different answers to whether you are behind, on track, or already there. And the vast majority of retirement tools, employer portals, and financial media content defaults to scenario 1. Not because it is the most accurate reflection of how retirees actually live, because it is the most conservative. And in a system where financial advisors charge a percentage of assets under management, conservative means more money under management for more years. There is no conspiracy in this. It is a structural incentive. An advisor charging 1% of assets under management earns more revenue when your target is $1.6 million than when it is $500,000. The mutual fund company running your target date fund earns fees on every dollar you keep invested for every year you keep contributing. The financial media generates more engagement from retirement anxiety than from retirement confidence. Every layer of the industry points in the same direction. Make the target large, keep you working, keep you contributing, keep you in the system. The framework was not designed around your actual retirement. It was designed around the system's revenue model. Knowing that does not make you cynical. It makes you clear. Here is what this feels like from the inside, and I want to name it precisely because most people experience it without ever identifying what happened. You have probably opened a retirement calculator at some point and felt your stomach drop. 1.4 million, 1.6 million, 2 million. You did the math on your current balance and your current savings rate and felt genuinely behind, maybe permanently behind. That feeling has a specific name in behavioral economics. It is target anchoring, the tendency to accept an externally provided number as the correct goal and to measure your progress exclusively against that number, regardless of whether the number was right in the first place. The anchor was placed carefully. You accepted it because it came from sources that looked authoritative, and now the gap between where you are and where the anchor says you need to be feels both real and overwhelming. The gap is not real. The anchor was wrong. The Employee Benefit Research Institute's 2024 Retirement Confidence Survey found that 46% of workers say they are not confident they will have enough money to live comfortably throughout retirement. That is nearly half the working population carrying a fear that, for a significant portion of them, is based on a calculation built around a number that does not reflect how they will actually live. Almost half the country is anxious about a gap that is smaller than they were told or does not exist at all. In a few minutes, I am going to show you the anti-diagnosis that costs Americans more money than any single investment mistake they have ever made. It is not what you think it is. Before I get there, I want you to remember a name. David, 58 years old, $87,000 per year, $480,000 saved. He opened a retirement calculator 8 months ago, stared at the number it gave him, and quietly decided he would need to work until 67. He told his wife almost nothing about it. He went back to the job the next morning and said even less. David has done almost everything right for 27 years. And the calculation he is running his life around right now is wrong in a way that is costing him something no account balance can buy back. I will come back to David. His full picture is exactly where this is going. You think the problem is that you have not saved enough. That is the diagnosis most people are walking around with. And it is wrong. The actual problem is that you have been measuring your progress against a target built around how much you earn, not how much you will actually spend. Those are 2 very different numbers, and the gap between them is where most American retirement plans silently fail, not from undersaving, but from over-targeting. Here is the research that makes this concrete. J.P. Morgan's 2023 Spending in Retirement report tracked actual transaction data from tens of thousands of retiree households across multiple years. Not projected spending. Not what retirees said they planned to spend. What they actually spent, pulled from real account activity. The median household in retirement spent between 54 and 56% of pre-retirement income. Not 80, not 70, 55. And the same research found something the standard retirement calculator cannot show you because it assumes a flat spending line for 30 years. The reality is a curve, not a line. Spending starts a bit higher in the early retirement years, the years when people travel and do the things they deferred while working. Then it declines in real terms, steadily, through the middle years as physical activity slows naturally. Then it rises again near the end, driven almost entirely by healthcare. Researchers who study this pattern call it the retirement spending smile. On average, real household spending in retirement declines by roughly 1 to 2% per year between ages 65 and 75, according to the J.P. Morgan data. That means the portfolio that covers your spending in year 1 is almost certainly more than sufficient to cover year 10, and even more than sufficient for year 20. The math compounds in your direction, year after year, and nobody put that on the chart. What this means for your portfolio target is not theoretical. A 65-year-old with a $500,000 portfolio withdrawing at 4% has $20,000 per year from investments. Pair that with $22,884 from Social Security at the average benefit. That is $42,884 per year in year 1. By year 10, with a 1.5% annual real spending decline from the spending smile pattern, your actual spending need has dropped to roughly $36,000 per year. Your portfolio, meanwhile, has not been sitting still. Even with withdrawals, a portfolio managed at 3 to 4% withdrawal from a $500,000 base has high historical survivability across 30-year windows. Vanguard's own long-term retirement modeling, published in their 2024 retirement income research, found that a 60-40 portfolio at 4% withdrawal succeeded, meaning it did not run to zero, in approximately 82% of 30-year historical simulations. At 3.5%, that success rate climbs to 93%. At 3%, it approaches historical certainty. You were told you needed 3 times more money than the data actually requires. And the mechanism behind that overcorrection costs people something that no account balance can ever replace. The Gallup Well-Being Index has tracked life satisfaction by age and employment status consistently across years. Its data shows that Americans over 65 who are fully retired report meaningfully higher well-being scores than those who are still working at the same age after controlling for income. And the gap is largest in the 60 to 70 window. Those are, for most people in reasonable health, the most physically capable years of early retirement. The years when travel is not yet complicated by mobility, when energy is still fully available, when the people you love are most likely still around to share it. Working through those years to hit a financial target you have already passed is the trade that hurts most. Not because of what it does to a spreadsheet, because of what it does to the actual texture of a life. Now here is what I want to name clearly, because the financial industry has cultivated a specific fear that keeps people anchored to inflated targets long after their real number is in reach. Healthcare. The fear is rational on its surface. Fidelity's 2024 retiree healthcare cost estimate suggests the average retired couple needs approximately $330,000 over the course of retirement for healthcare costs. That number gets circulated constantly in financial media because it is big and it is frightening. But here is what gets left out every time that figure appears. $330,000 divided across a 22-year average retirement is approximately $15,000 per year for a couple. That is $7,500 per person per year. And critically, that estimate already accounts for Medicare premiums, co-pays, dental, vision, and out-of-pocket expenses. It assumes you enrolled in Medicare at 65, which anyone reading this will be eligible for. The Kaiser Family Foundation's 2024 analysis of Medicare beneficiary spending found that Medicare covers the majority of beneficiary healthcare costs, with average out-of-pocket exposure of roughly $6,000 to $7,000 per year per person across all categories. That is real money. It belongs in your budget, but it is not a retirement plan-destroying number. It is a line item. The households in J.P. Morgan's spending data were already living inside those healthcare costs when they reported spending 55% of pre-retirement income. The healthcare fear is not irrational. It is just already priced into the 55% figure that the retirement industry keeps replacing with 80. Now I want to come back to David, fully this time. David is 58 years old, senior operations manager at a regional distribution company in Columbus, Ohio. He earns $87,000 per year. He has been contributing to his 401k without interruption since age 31. He has never taken a loan from the account. He did not sell anything during the 2008 crash or the 2020 COVID decline. His balance today sits at $480,000. 8 months ago, he ran his numbers through a major bank's retirement calculator. The tool told him he needed between $1.2 and $1.5 million to retire comfortably. He stared at the number. He did the math. He decided he would need to work until 67. He has not revisited the calculation since because looking at it felt like looking at a wound. Here is what that calculator did not know about David. His mortgage has 13 payments left. It will be fully paid in just over a year at age 59. His 2 children are 26 and 24 years old, self-supporting, and asking for nothing. His car is a 2020 model, fully paid off, and he plans to drive it another 8 years. When David actually maps his post-retirement budget, not his current income, but the real list of things he expects to spend money on after he stops working, the number comes out to $41,500 per year. That is 47.7% of his current income, below the median from JP Morgan's spending data. His Social Security estimate, which is available free to every American on the Social Security Administration's website at SSA. Gov projects a monthly benefit of $2,460 at 65. That is $29,520 per year. Subtract that from $41,500. His portfolio needs to generate $11,980 per year. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that requires $299,500. At 3.5% for a portfolio that does not deplete the principal, it requires $342,000. David has $480,000. He passed his real retirement number years ago. He has been planning to work 9 more years to reach a target the data says he does not need. He is not behind. He is ahead. And he is not an outlier. A 2024 survey from the Employee Benefit Research Institute found that 59% of Americans who had not yet retired underestimated how much Social Security would contribute to their retirement income. More than half of the people currently planning their retirement are leaving a guaranteed income stream out of their calculation or crediting it at a fraction of what it will actually deliver. The result is a phantom gap between where they are and where they believe they need to be. A gap they are trying to close by trading the most irreplaceable currency they have: years. Here is what the behavioral economics literature calls this. Richard Thaler, the Nobel laureate in economics, described a phenomenon in consumer behavior where people systematically overweight a prominently anchored number and underweight information that would correct it, even when the correcting information is freely available. The retirement calculator handed David a number. He accepted it as authoritative. He stopped looking for information that might revise it downward. Not because he is unsophisticated, because that is what human brains do with authoritative-looking numbers. The anchor sticks. And the industry knows it sticks. The anchor is not an accident. A tool that shows you a number 3 times your actual requirement and then offers to sell you a managed fund to close the gap is not a neutral calculator. It is a sales instrument dressed as a math problem. 3 things David should do immediately with this information. That is the next section. And the third one is the one nobody thinks to check, which is probably the single highest return 15-minute task available to any American within 10 years of retirement. Why $500,000 is actually enough to retire forever. Understanding the right target is step 1. Using it is step 2. Most people never get to step 2 because the financial industry has successfully convinced them that building a retirement plan requires a professional, a portfolio review, a fee agreement, and a minimum of 3 weeks of waiting. It requires none of those things for what I am about to walk you through. These 3 actions can be completed this week, 2 of them today, and the combined result changes every calculation you have been running about when your life is actually yours again. Action 1. Build your actual retirement spending map, not your income replacement estimate. Get a blank sheet of paper or open a spreadsheet and write down every category of spending you expect to have in retirement. Not what you spend now, what you will actually spend then. Start with housing. If your mortgage will be paid off before you retire, your monthly housing cost drops to property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. For the average homeowner, the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditure Survey from 2023 puts that combined figure at roughly $9,000 to $12,000 per year, not the $25,000 to $30,000 that includes a mortgage payment. Write down transportation. Most retired households need one car, not two. The American Automobile Association estimates the average annual cost of owning one vehicle at around $10,000 per year, including insurance, fuel, and maintenance. Write down food, utilities, healthcare as a line item using the $6,000 to $7,000 per person per year figure from the Kaiser Family Foundation data, travel, entertainment, and anything specific to your life. Add it up. Whatever that total is, compare it to 80% of your current income. For most people who go through this exercise honestly, the actual number is meaningfully lower, often landing near or below the 55% figure JP Morgan's research found across thousands of real households. That difference is not hypothetical. It is the distance between the retirement target you have been chasing and the retirement target you actually need. Write both numbers down. Put them next to each other. The gap between them is the amount of anxiety you have been carrying about a problem that is smaller than you were told. One warning here. Do not round up aggressively to feel safe. The instinct when building a retirement budget is to add padding everywhere because the stakes feel high. The problem is that every dollar of padding you add to your annual spending estimate translates to $25 of additional portfolio requirement at a 4% withdrawal rate. $10,000 of unnecessary padding in your annual budget requires $250,000 extra dollars in your portfolio at retirement. Precision matters here. The padding is not protection. It is misdirection. Action 2. Go to ssa.gov and pull your Social Security statement today. Not this weekend, today. The Social Security Administration provides a free online account called My Social Security that shows your projected benefit at 62, 67, and 70, based on your actual earnings history. This takes 10 minutes to create if you do not already have an account. You will need your Social Security number, an email address, and a way to verify your identity. The projected benefit at 65 sits roughly midway between the 62 and 67 figures shown on the statement. Write that monthly number down, multiply it by 12, and that is your annual guaranteed income floor, regardless of what your portfolio does. A 2024 Employee Benefit Research Institute survey found that 59% of Americans who had not yet retired underestimated how much Social Security would contribute to their income in retirement. More than half. The single most widely underused free tool in American personal finance is the one that shows you the guaranteed income you have already earned through decades of payroll taxes. If you have not pulled this number recently, you are doing retirement math with a missing variable. The missing variable is often large enough to move your entire retirement timeline. Action 3. Run the real target calculation. Take the annual spending total from Action 1. Subtract your annual Social Security benefit from Action 2. Whatever is left is the amount your portfolio must generate each year. Divide that number by 0.04. That is your actual portfolio target at a 4% withdrawal rate. If you want a portfolio that never depletes principal, divide by 0.035. That is the 3.5% perpetual withdrawal rate that Vanguard's research found sustains a balanced portfolio across virtually all historical market sequences. The number you get from that calculation is your real finish line, not the number a calculator handed you based on 80% income replacement with Social Security minimized. Your number, based on your actual spending, your actual guaranteed income, your actual life. Write it down next to your current balance. See the real gap, or discover there is no gap at all. Now here's how David ran this. He did all 3 actions on a Sunday afternoon. He built his actual retirement budget line by line. Housing without the mortgage. 1 car. Healthcare as a real line item. Travel at the level he actually expected, not at a vague aspirational figure. His total came out to $41,500 per year. He pulled his Social Security statement for the first time in his life. His projected benefit at 65 was $2,460 per month, $29,520 per year. He subtracted that from his spending total. His portfolio needed to generate $11,980 annually. He divided by 0.035 for the perpetual rate. His real portfolio target, $342,000. His actual balance, $480,000. He was not 9 years away from retirement. He was not 5 years away. He was already past his number. He had been past it for 2 years without knowing it because nobody had ever shown him the right calculation. He sat with that for a long time before telling his wife. His plan now is to retire at 61, when his mortgage makes its final payment. He will have 21 months of additional contributions between now and then, which will bring his balance to approximately $530,000 by the time he stops working. His portfolio will generate roughly $18,500 per year at 3.5%. His Social Security at 65 will add $29,500. His total retirement income, $48,000 per year, $7,000 per year above his projected spending need. His portfolio does not deplete. It grows slowly in the background, and he will spend his 60s doing the things he kept saying he would do when he retired. Not his late 60s, his early 60s, the years his body still fully cooperates. What David got back was not money. He already had the money. What he got back was time, 6 years of it. The most valuable years in the math of a human life, the years between 61 and 67 when health is still good, when energy is still available, when the people you plan to spend that time with are still around to share it. No investment strategy returns time. No compounding rate produces more years. The only thing that produces more years is running the right calculation early enough to act on it. If this kind of analysis is useful to you, subscribing to this channel is the best way to make sure you keep seeing it. YouTube's algorithm does not surface content to people who do not tell it they want more. Hitting subscribe takes 3 seconds and costs nothing. It is the lowest friction decision in this entire video. Here is the full cost of not running these 3 actions today. Not eventually. Not when you have time. Today. The Employee Benefit Research Institute found that the average American worker delays retirement planning reviews by an average of 11 months after identifying something they should revisit. 11 months. For someone with David's balance and David's target, 11 months of continued contributions at his current rate represents roughly $12,000 of additional savings he does not need, plus 11 months of working a job he could have already left, 11 months of alarm clocks, 11 months of commutes, 11 months of meetings that could have been his own time. The cost of 11 months of inaction is not calculable in dollars because the dollars are not the scarce resource. The years are. The 55% number has been in the research for years. The Social Security statement has been free and available online for years. The 4% withdrawal calculation has been published in academic journals since 1994. None of this information is new. None of it requires a financial advisor, a minimum account balance, or a paid subscription. It requires running the calculation once, with your actual numbers, against your actual life. The thermostat has been set to the wrong temperature for a long time. The dial was never locked. It was just never handed to you. You have it now. The question is how long you wait before you use it.